Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Robert Johnson, the Dean of the Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, and I welcome all of you to this memorial for Patrick Hong. First, Mr. and Mrs. Hong, on behalf of the medical school and Rutgers University, we extend our deepest condolences. And we wish to thank you for giving us this opportunity to have this memorial where we can express our feelings about your wonderful son and all that he has done for us and how he's touched us over the last 2 years. We gather today to celebrate the life of a remarkable young man who gave much to our community and much to our school. What matters most in our living is what we leave behind, how we touch others, what differences we make in the lives of individuals who have been able to be in our presence. In the time Patrick was with us, he touched and made a difference in many lives. He was known for his friendly and outgoing personality, his humanism, and his commitment to making a difference. Patrick was a role model for many of his peers. He was an outstanding student. He never shied away from participating in voluntary events and was always the first person to reach out to his peers when he saw that something needed to be done. A perfect example of this is how Patrick revitalized the Chinese language medicine organization, student organization, a group that is aimed toward volunteerism for the Asian community in and around Newark, and for educating all of us about medical Mandarin. His commitment and leadership were exemplary. Now, I want to talk about some of the things we're doing to memorialize Patrick that comes from the medical school. First, Patrick was a humanist. And we have a group on our campus called the Gold Humanism Honor Society, and students are inducted to this society because of the humanism they have displayed over their time with us. They're inducted because of their leadership, their compassion, and their dedication to service. The Gold Humanism Honor Society has inducted Patrick into the society posthumously. And Dr. Andrea McKay, who is the faculty advisor for the Gold Humanism Honor Society, is here today to present to you, Mr. and Mrs. Hong, a certificate of his induction as well as a pen. Andrea? Secondly, we have made, on behalf of the school, a contribution to the Trevor Project. And for those of you who don't know, this is an organization that Patrick was committed to, and it is devoted to the prevention of suicide among LGBTQ youth. And so, Mr. and Mrs. Hong, we made the contribution, and they have presented to us a letter commemorating that. I'll come around there. And finally, one of the things that I think is very special is our opportunity as a school to memorialize forever Patrick's time with us. Patrick would have graduated in May of 2025. And the students who organized this program and Dr. Hill, who is the Senior Associate Dean for Student Affairs, approached me and asked whether or not we could award Patrick a diploma, a Doctor of Medicine, in May of 2025. We have a process for that. It starts with the dean approving it, and then it is presented to the faculty council, the governing body of the school, for its approval. That resolution was presented last night, and the faculty council unanimously approved it. And I'll read the resolution to you now. Whereas Patrick Young, a member of the graduating class of 2025 at New Jersey Medical School, has been a vital member of the student community at New Jersey Medical School since beginning his matriculation. And whereas Patrick Hong served the New Jersey Medical School community as an organization leader, as well as an active contributor to the school's community during the years as a student. And whereas on Saturday, October 29, 2022, Mr. Hong suffered an accidental fall leading to his death. And whereas the members of Mr. Hong's class, in concert with countless faculty and staff, wish to honor and preserve the memory of Mr. Patrick Young. And whereas the New Jersey Medical School faculty, students, and staff, through Dr. James Hill, Associate Dean for Student Affairs, and a petition to the Dean to confer the Doctor of Medicine degree to Mr. Patrick Hong posthumously, and at the time he is scheduled to graduate in May of 2025. Now, therefore, be resolved that the New Jersey Medical School Faculty Council, at its meeting on January 10th, 2023, expresses deepest sympathy to the family and friends of Mr. Patrick Young and to the classmates of the class of 2025, and recommend that Rutgers University confer the Doctorate of Medicine degree posthumously in 2025 to Mr. Patrick Young. Today's memorial is planned by Patrick's classmates and the Office of Student Affairs. Patrick's peers wanted to commemorate him, and I'm so pleased that I was able to participate at least a little bit in this. And now I call Mr. Mario Sokolik, a member of the class of 2025, to come forward and continue the program. Thank you.
Just wanted to briefly say thank you, Dean Johnson and Rutgers, for really helping to facilitate this memorial today. I also wanted to say thank you for the family, friends, colleagues that were able to make it out today. I think it's always nice to see familiar faces, but also to see a lot of unfamiliar faces, and to see really how far Patrick's presence reached. You should have all gotten a little pamphlet that goes over the proceedings for today. It's going to be a number of remarks from some students, as well as a little bit on some student initiatives in helping to remember Patrick. And so I get to start, so if you'll bear with me. I knew Patrick for a fraction. You crunch the numbers and you'll get 1 out of 24. And you'll sit and you'll think, that seems wildly unfair. And you'll sit and you'll think some more, and you'll think of all the people that never got to meet Patrick. 0 out of 24. And all of a sudden, that 1 out of 24 seems that much more special. So I'd like to talk about my 1. I remember my awkward first contacts. us in our house shirts all the way back in orientation. I thought Patrick was so cool. Everything was so go with the flow. And there I was thinking about, did I cheer too much at field day, or did I blow a new friendship at lunch? I don't know if he thought the same thoughts or worried about the same trivial things, but if he did, he never showed it. And with Patty, he made sure that things like that didn't matter. He never seemed to dwell on things like that. And when you were with him, you didn't worry about things like that, because how could you? You were too busy laughing or talking or just being. I think what I respected most about Patrick was his commitment. He did what he wanted with the time he had. Nothing was to impress. There was no checking boxes with Patrick. And that's why his friendship was truly special. If he wanted to spend time with you, he would, and he did. There was no appeasement with Patrick. And that's what makes his service so astonishing. He gave to the communities he worked with because he wanted to, not because he was expected to. I'm not sure how many can say that, and I admire that. But I think what I'll miss most are the laughs. There were a lot of laughs with Patrick. He was very funny. And that humor was calming. I liked studying with Patrick. It'd be me, Patrick, and Liam collectively keeping the Kearney Starbucks afloat. Even if we all had no idea what we were looking at, there was always calm. 2 days before the exam, we've got a whole 48 hours, don't worry. The night before, 12 whole hours. They might as well just give us another lecture. I will miss that calm, and I'm especially missing that calm now during Euro. And I could use a little Patrick right now. And it's incredible how many times I've found myself saying that over these past months. It's easy for me to slip into thinking about what 2 would have looked like. Whose name would Patrick have pulled for Secret Santa? What outlandish gift would they have gotten? How hard would we have all laughed? What new club would Patrick have started on a whim? And what new community would he foster with this impossible time? Where would he be, and what would he be doing? But 2 just isn't in the cards, so instead I cherish my 1. In Greek, we have a saying, Eonia mimitu, which translates to may his memory be eternal. And even more so than that, may we all be a little bit more like Patty. So to my class and those who shared such a limited time with Patty, here is to all of our ones. More than most, and yet somehow not enough. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to talk about one of the student initiatives that we had. As students, we've asked the school to install a piece of art as a permanent memorial to Patrick. They've agreed to do this, and when it's complete, we will invite you, Patrick's family, to see it. We all knew Patrick's passion for climbing, so the art piece will consist of a series of climbing holds, ascending one of the building's interior walls in the colors of the rainbow. And the piece will be titled Full Send. And while some of you may know this as a climbing term, we truly felt as though Patrick embodied the spirit of full send in everything that he did, living life to the fullest. We hope that this installation will inspire others to do the same and help us always to remember the joy that Patrick had for living and what we can learn from that. And at this time, I'd like to invite Kevin Tang to the podium to briefly talk about the cranes that you see decorating. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin. I'm a member of Chinese Language, Medicine and Language, CLM, a CSOL organization that was revived by Patrick last year. He took charge in reapplying CLM for CSOL accreditation and was present for all of our volunteer events. He was a pivotal member of this volunteer organization, and he has touched the lives of countless people, not only in this school, but also in our local community. One of my fondest memories of Patrick was when we went to volunteer for the Tzu Buddhist Temple Community Health Day at Cedar Grove. He told me before he left that he was worried that he would not be able to speak Mandarin well enough to the local Chinese, Taiwanese, and Cantonese residents, and joked that he was going to use Google Translate and sign language to help communicate with them. However, when we arrived, Patrick showed no hesitation in going to the front lines of a super hectic event. He directly, at the very start of the event, he went to help elderly Chinese residents get COVID tests and register in English, which is a really tough task. His drive to always challenge himself his drive to always challenge himself was something that I always admired, and I hope and I still strive to accomplish to this day. As many of you have already noticed, the paper cranes throughout our decorations. One of the biggest projects we had as an organization that Patrick came up with was to fold 1,000 paper cranes for the upcoming Chinese Lunar New Year, and to decorate our medical school with it and hand out to our staff and students. Paper cranes in Asian culture represents many things, but most importantly, it represents hope, loyalty, and longevity, all of which characterizes who Pat was as a person. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of the entire club that Pat was the glue that kept us all together, and he was the main driving force in our amazing friendships right now. I hope that these cranes can also inspire you hope and to persevere during this really difficult time. And hopefully these cranes can also immortalize Patrick's memory for the rest of our lives. Thank you. The next person up is Liam McLaughlin.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming today to celebrate our classmate, our colleague, and our friend Patrick Hong. When I first met Patrick last August, I didn't know what to think of him. In fact, for the first few hours of school, I only knew him as Patagonia, as he was wearing a Patagonia shirt on the first day of orientation, and well, his name was Pat. That day, he tried to argue that Patagonia wasn't the vibe he was going for, but continued to lose that argument each time he wore his signature black Patagonia chest bag. As the days went on, however, Patagonia quickly turned into Pat, or Patty, one of my closest friends at NJMS. Initially, there were some surface level things that quickly allowed us to become friends. We both had left New Jersey for undergrad, and we didn't know many people here at NJMS, leaving us pretty desperate to create some new friends. We then realized that we were both members of the same fraternity, Sig Ep, and even though neither of us fully remembered the secret handshake, we would often both joke about our brotherly love. The longer we knew each other, we discovered that we both swam in high school, we both volunteered as EMTs during our gap years, we knew how to work hard and play hard, we were both one of 3 brothers, and we realized that we were both Geminis, born just 14 days apart. It was a friendship that was easy and fun and made NJMS begin to feel not just like a school, but like a home. He was someone that I felt understood me in ways that so many other people at NJMS couldn't, and I was so thankful to have found a friend like him here. He was instantly someone I knew would be in my life for a very long time, and I was excited about that. While Patrick was on campus and wearing the hat of a medical student, he was passionate, determined, and eager to learn medicine, but also to discover how he fit into it. I was lucky enough to participate in a few small group sessions with Patrick right before he passed away, where I saw him interact with patients with such kindness, empathy, dignity, and curiosity. I was sure that any patient to have him as a doctor down the road would be truly lucky. While we always joked about, and even placed bets on, what area of medicine Patrick would end up in, the only thing I knew was that when it came time for him to choose a specialty, he would always do it for the right reasons. It would never be for money or prestige, but for where he felt he could genuinely care for his patients in ways that he wanted to, not that was expected of him. His determination and drive extended outside the classroom, His work in his research lab and taking charge of the renewal of the Chinese language and medicine group were amazing. Just this past August, 1 year after meeting him, I also had the lucky privilege of being a co-orientation leader with Patrick and witnessed his natural calmness and friendliness as a source of comfort for new students in their first few moments on campus. I knew that Patrick never would check a box just to check it, but rather he fully put his heart into things that he cared about, and as a result, he did them well. NJMS was definitely made a better place because of Patrick, and I'm confident that his work on campus will continue to have an impact on me, my class, the classes below, and many others. While Patrick thrived as a medical student, my favorite part of Patrick was how he mastered something that many of us struggle to do. He studied, he worked hard, he volunteered, but ultimately he never allowed medical school to hold him back from doing the things he loved and being with the people that he loved the most. Whenever I would talk to Patrick, he was always planning another trip to Nashville or San Francisco or Long Island. He seemingly had an endless stream of dinners in the city with his friend Ethan, different concerts to attend, adventures that he was going on with Aiden, and was always heading back home to Metuchen for nights of poker and video games with his parents, grandparents, and siblings. He found a way to balance the demands of schools with the importance of fun, adventure, and spontaneity. It was nice knowing that no matter the day or the demands of school that week, Patrick was always down to full send a meal, a car ride, a pool day, or a night out just to get our minds off the monotony of class and Anki. When he made a plan with you, he would never bail. He showed up, he made sure that you felt like you mattered to him, and these qualities made his friendship so special and so rare. Yesterday, us M2s had a meeting discussing the planning of our M3 years. During the meeting, with all the color coding and the hecticness of the lottery system, one thing that I kept thinking was that no matter what schedule any of us get, there will always be a Patrick-sized hole missing from it. While many of us came into medicine with the goal of healing and the desire to save people and prevent loss, over the past few months, I have slowly come to terms with the fact that we cannot bring Patrick back. And I've realized that no matter how hard we try, that hole will never be filled. While this reality is really hard to swallow, I am thankful for the short but jam-packed 15 months that I was able to call Patrick my friend. So we were able to create so many memories that will stay with me and our friends forever. I'm also so thankful that Patrick was so willing to include me and the rest of our NJMS family into the other parts of his life. He was determined to merge the boundaries of his friend groups so that his medical school friends knew his home friends, his college friends, Aiden friends, and so on. And it is my hope that these mergers will allow us to continue to keep the memory and spirit of Patrick alive forever. When I was thinking about what I wanted to say for this today, I went through a lot of my text messages with Patrick and read the birthday card that Patrick gave me 14 days before his birthday this past year. At the end of the card, he had written, "This next year is going to be a big party in Harrison." For someone so positive, energetic, and full of life, being here today is certainly not the party or the celebration that any of us was hoping for or expecting. While I'm sad that I will not be able to live down the road from him for more than a few months this past year, I am thankful that today we are all able to come together to celebrate him and the amazing person and friend that he was to us. The world will forever be a little bit less bright, and thousands of patients will lose out on an incredible opportunity to have such a caring and brilliant physician taking care of them. But his memory will go on. His last text to me, which I have thoroughly saved and whatever, was, "I appreciate you, fam." And to Patrick, if you can hear me up there, know that I'm the one that appreciates you, fam. And I'm thankful that I got to know you, and I know that you'll continue to be with us no matter where you go. So to the Hong family and Aiden, if there's anything that we can ever do, please let us know. And thank you for sharing your amazing son, brother, partner with us. He was very special. Another initiative that we kind of came up with to commemorate Pat and to really bring him with us as we continue on through our own medical careers was to create a lapel pin that can go onto our white coats. Different physicians have different things on their lapel pins that matter to them, and I know that for all time I'll be happy to carry Patrick with me so that he can be there with us throughout it all. So there's lapel pins for everyone here. The design is on the back of the programs. Aiden was able to help us take Patrick's tattoo that he got recently. It was in the shape of a pill bottle, and he would often say that it was him exploring medicine. So please feel free to take one and wear one on your coats. Thank you. And up next is Patrick's really great friend, Parisa.
Thank you so much, Liam and Mario, for such really great speeches. As a writer, I felt a lot of personal pressure to write something that I considered worthy of Pat's memory, but as much as I tried, nothing felt sufficient. So instead, I'll just settle for sharing some of my favorite and personal memories with you all today. How I will remember Pat is that he was the best kind of friend, the kind you'd always want on your side and by your side. I am thankful for the countless days we spent together climbing, playing tennis, dancing, studying at coffee shops, trying to make the medical school grind a little bit more manageable. When we went bouldering, he was always so very Pat, adding a bit of his own personal flair to the activity. He exclusively referred to his fingers as fingies and loved the dramatic drop and roll after completing a climb. He'd keep going at problems I had long given up on and dared to try the ones I wrote off as too hard. He was the one who coaxed me into playing tennis again after I hadn't touched my racket in 5 years and refused to do so. Though I was very rusty, we both were happily awful at tennis together. Even when we were an hour in and still playing pretty poorly, he'd always just laugh and reassuringly say, "We're still warming up." Pat was the friend I could always count on for a pep talk, a smile, and a hug. Pat was the one who reminded me to find time for the things I love to do, even when school became increasingly demanding, and he truly led by example. He worked hard, but always made sure to prioritize the people that mattered to him. One of my favorite memories of Pat was on a Sunday afternoon when we had made plans to go dancing outside deep in Brooklyn, and I was really excited to introduce him to some of my college friends for the first time. But that day, the weather was disgusting. It was gray and pouring rain all day. I kept expecting Pat to cancel because I know I probably would have. But to my surprise, he was still down. And of course he was. He had told me he would come, and so he'd followed through. And now I will treasure that day forever. How we stayed for so long, even with the rain soaking our hair and our skin and our shirts. How even after my friends left the dance floor, he stayed with me and we danced and danced. This particular memory feels like the epitome of Pat. He is someone who always showed up for his friends, who always managed to have fun, even in less than ideal circumstances, who lived life as best he could at all times. He was a kind, thoughtful, and incredibly generous friend, the type of person who helped you out when you needed it and even when you didn't ask. I cannot count the number of rides he has given me when my car was in the shop. He'd offer sometimes before I'd even ask. Once, I casually expressed interest in a book he had just read, and he suggested I borrow it. He thought I'd really like it. I agreed, and while I promptly forgot about it, he didn't. He made sure to give it to me later that week. It was so easy to be around him. He's always down to do most things, and you could always count on him to have a good time. And even if he wasn't in a good mood, he'd put it aside to be present with you. He rarely spoke negatively about others around him and was such a good listener. He'd always pay attention to even my most nonsensical ramblings and respond thoughtfully. Being around him inspired me to work on myself, to be a kinder and more compassionate person, to listen more, and to not let life and school's chaos get in the way of nurturing my relationships to my family, my friends, and to even pay more attention to my present life. Pat was my first friend at NJMS and the first person in our class I even talked to. Before we even started school, we tossed around the idea of living together. And although that didn't pan out, it still seemed like fate that we ended up being engaged mentees together. And our friendship was cemented from then onwards. Now, it is still hard to fathom that Pat will not be here to weather the coming years of medical school and ultimately graduate with us. The kindness, thoughtfulness, and empathy that made Pat such a good friend would have, without a doubt, made him an incredible doctor. I am so grateful to have known Pat for the time that I did, to have had the opportunity for him to touch so many different parts of my life, even if that means that those parts are left so much emptier now without him here. His last text to me was to tell me, "I'm proud of you," in reference to something I tried that was way out of left field for me. And I know he would be proud of all of us here for doing our best, for trying new things, and for continuing to work to help others in the way that he always strove to do. To the Hong family and Aiden, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know that he will be with us in our memories and in our hearts as we continue forward. And wherever you are now, Pat, know that I'm looking forward to climbing with you again one day. Love you forever, Pat. And next, I'd like to introduce Phoebe.
I really don't know how you guys all kept it together up here. Thank you everyone for being here. I struggle to find the words to say about Pat, and I think that there are no words I can say that someone else hasn't already said about who he was or what he meant to them. Like most of our class, I really only knew him for about a year. But even in that short time, there were so many laughs that we had and so many meals that we shared and nice memories that it's crazy to think there won't be any more. I can only wish that I had more time to get to know him better and see all the things he would accomplish. The first time I really got to know Pat was early in M1 year when he invited Parise and me to check out his place in Harrison. We ended up sitting by the pool for hours before getting dinner with Aiden, and we just ended up talking the whole time, just getting to know each other. When I think back to what we talked about, I just get flashes of like horoscopes and different Chinese food that we like to eat. But I can very vividly remember how welcome I felt and how seen I felt. I went there that day because it sounded fun. I didn't have much to do, school was just starting, but I'm so grateful that I went because I came out of it feeling like I had really bonded with them. And I think that was one of Pat's many gifts, his ability to bring people together. Another thing I greatly admired about Pat was that he was so incredibly passionate, and he really gave his all in everything that he did. As far as academics go, he restarted an entire Cecil group, and he basically built everything in our lab. But also, just beyond school activities, he made an active effort to reach out and build relationships. Even as I was hearing the stories from his friends and his family, it was no surprise how deeply he cared for everyone and how much love he had. He was incredible, and if we could all have a little bit of his drive and his compassion, I'm sure all the problems in the world would be fixed by now. Pat was the type of person to share that love with everyone in his life, and I'm grateful that I was able to experience that. I know there's nothing I can say to convey all of my thoughts and feelings right now, but I just hope that I'm able to take a little bit of everything he shared with me and touch as many people as I know he was going to. Thanks for being in my life, Patty Cakes. Okay, I need a little break. I have to read something else, but give me a second. Okay, so I actually probably should have started off with this, but Pat and I we were in the same lab here at NJMS. We worked for Dr. Miriam Bo-Carsley, who's not the Bo-Carsley who gave us all the lectures. She's actually her daughter. She's awesome. She unfortunately couldn't be here right now because of COVID. Unfortunately, she tested positive on Monday. And so she actually asked me if I'd be able to read something that she prepared. And so I'm sure she's watching. So she wrote, "I'm sad not to be able to join you all in person, but I didn't want to miss the chance to reflect on the impact that Pat had in the medical school, in my lab, and in my life. Pat was one of the first members of my research team, joining shortly after I had established my lab. The position was Pat's first wet lab research experience, and he was a natural. He is creative, innovative, meticulous, and inquisitive. Shortly after starting the lab, without my asking, he came to me with an experimental idea that was so carefully constructed, well-researched, and brilliant. I was so impressed with his initiative, careful thought, and creativity that, of course, I had to let him do it. His willingness to jump in with 2 feet has allowed us to develop a fruitful line of research in the lab. I recall my departmental chair nudging me at one point and saying with regards to Pat, sometimes you can convince MD students to become MD PhD students. And Pat definitely had what it took. Pat's imprint on my physical lab will be forever. He was central in setting up and building equipment and relentlessly troubleshooting when things were baffling me. From putting together whiteboards to aligning micro-manipulators, he did it all. I have a favorite memory of Pat balancing on a counter, wiring computers while on the phone with one of his brothers, asking him if he had a computer monitor cable from the early 80s. I can't tell you the number of times he would text and say, I have some spare time. I'm dropping by the lab. Have anything for me to build? He did things better and faster than I ever could, and each time I walk through the lab, I can't help but be reminded of him. But there is more to Pat than just a natural brilliant scientist. I will never forget the first time I spoke to Pat on Zoom as part of his interview for the lab position. I mentioned that the lab was new and that I wanted to make sure we had a focus on building lab culture. Mentioning lab culture made Pat light up, and he told me he wanted to be a part of cultivating that culture. And he did. Pat made everyone feel welcome. He put together welcome signs whenever we had new people joining the lab. He built community through his love for puns and could get the entire lab engaged with silly internet games that magically made everyone feel part of the team. He was supportive to all and was well known for leaving sticky notes with words of encouragement on people's desks. And the best thing about it was that those words were always genuine. Pat was always genuine. I can still hear Pat's voice in my head, and I love replaying all the quintessentially Pat phrases he loved to use. His loss is personal. It's a loss for the NJMS community, but it's also a loss for society. Pat had already impacted so many lives, but was just gearing to impact countless more. In Pat's memory, I want to strive to build community and make others feel included and heard. And that's from Dr. Miriam Book-Hersley. Mario.
Just wanted to quickly say thank you to Phoebe, Parisa, Liam, Kevin for your very kind words. And at this time, we would like to open this up to the students or faculty, family members, anybody that would like to speak on behalf of Pat, either off the cuff or formally prepared, it doesn't matter. Thank you.
Hey everyone, and thank you all for being here to celebrate our friend Pat. And I just want to add a few words about some of my favorite memories with him. One of the first days of med school, we were talking in a small group and got asked a med student's favorite question: what kind of doctor do you plan on being? Everyone went around and gave their answers from, I don't know yet, I'm still figuring it out, to knowing exactly what specialty they wanted. And then when it came to Pat, he jokingly answered, the path of least resistance, which was easily the best answer of all and one that we all agreed with. It's a simple answer to a common question, but after getting to know Pat, you can see that even though he was just as hardworking and dedicated as each of us, he was also refreshingly casual, cool, and just somehow never seemed stressed. He was such an easy person to talk to, and I remember sitting with him at lunch during orientation talking about our gap year jobs, and then badgering him about Duke basketball because I was so jealous of him for getting to experience that. And while many people at the time were talking about Wordle, Pat and I were geeking out over the spin-off Worldle, trying to see which one of us was better at geography. From then on, a lot of my favorite memories in medical school included Pat, and he genuinely took the time to make friends, check in on you, and most importantly, be present when you were spending time with him. While we all have busy schedules and med school makes it hard to get together at times, I could always be sure that when it was time to de-stress and unwind, our plans would always include Pat, and Pat would always be there, whether it was grabbing lunch or having a day out in the city. I admired him for how he never failed to make time for his friends or family and how he could somehow take a nap in any single setting. It's been tough to go through the past few months without seeing his 24/7 smile on his face and hearing his classic "What's up, fam?" or "For sure." And thinking back to the last few times I saw him before Halloween, one of my last memories was him coming up to me, studying in a busy Coparaco, sitting at the table across from me and going, "Chris, I'm going to sit right here and face you so we can look at each other while we study," just to get a laugh out of me because he could obviously see I was stressing out. Pat was such a kind, caring human being who radiated friendliness and, as he would say it, just overall good vibes. Medical school has not and will not be the same without him, and I'll always carry his memories with me and try to do my best impression of him when I need to squeeze in some much-needed naps during third year. Thank you to everyone involved that made this memorial possible and for giving us a chance to share our favorite memories with Pat. We love and miss you, fam.
And finally, I would just like to invite Dr. Duque for one last comment.
Hi everyone, I'm here on behalf of the Office of Student Affairs for New Jersey Medical School, and Dr. James Hill, who is the Associate Dean for Student Affairs, who unfortunately could not be here today. My name is Luis Alzate Duque. I'm the Assistant Dean for Student Affairs at New Jersey Medical School, and I'm going to be reading just some prepared remarks by Dr. James Hill. So these are his writings. I'm sorry that I'm not able to be with you in person. I'm sick, and to be on the safe side, I'm limiting my exposure to others. I just want to thank all the students who worked on today's memorial service. They were very committed in recognizing what a wonderful person Patrick was and what he meant to them. So thank you, Liam, Sri, Michelle, Isabel, Shivani, Parisa, Mario, Emily, Christopher, Matthew, Kevin, Julia, and Phoebe. I also want to thank Mercedes Padilla Register from my office, who helped lead the students in this effort in pulling everything together today. As always, she did an amazing job, which I can attest to that, yes. I want to also thank Michael Petty, the NJMS Chief of Staff and Chief Operating Officer, for helping today and with the art installation that will honor Patrick as well, and the audiovisual department for their help streaming and recording this service today. Lastly, I want to thank Patrick's family and loved ones for raising and nourishing such a wonderful human being. I had the opportunity to get to know Patrick a little bit last summer when he served as an orientation leader for our NJMS class. But I feel like I've come to know him better through the stories that his fellow students have shared. I've heard about his multiple acts of kindness for others, his passion for making a difference, and the joy he brought each day. He was truly an inspiration. Lin-Manuel Miranda once asked to define a legacy, was asked to define a legacy, and he said, "What is a legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden that you never get to see." In the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to see Patrick's legacy through his friends. He planted the seeds in each of their hearts. Seeds of kindness, seeds of passion, seeds of joy. I'm happy to know that Patrick's garden will grow as his peers move through their lives and careers, spreading the inspiration he gave them. I want to thank Patrick for that. You made the world a much better place. And now I just want to say I did not get the chance to meet Patrick, but I can see the huge, immense impact that he's made in our institution in a very short amount of time. So thank you for sharing Patrick with us, and I am sure we will carry him throughout for eternity. Thank you.
Prior to the close of today's, oh, sure, please, Dean Heiner.
Dr. and Mrs. Hong, your family. I'm George Heinrich. I'm the Dean of Admissions. So I had one special privilege with Patrick that others at New Jersey Medical School did not have. I worked with him through the whole admissions process. We interacted a lot, and so I got to know him. And I lead the entrepreneurship program here, and Pat and I started to get involved in many projects. He was wonderful. He had some thoughts. I gave him some leads. He went to interviewed people. He came back. So we were working on some, I thought, very interesting projects that would make a difference. What he leaves behind is really described with my favorite word, which is passion. And those whom he touched and those who saw how he reacted will always remember that, as I will. And it's the enthusiasm and the kindness that we will all remember. So I just wanted to share my thoughts and the extra benefit I had to know him a longer time. So my best wishes for all. Thank you.
Hi, my family wishes to express our heartfelt thanks to the faculty, staff, and the students at NJMS who have given their support and their compassion during this difficult time, and share their touching stories this afternoon. You know, a lot of things we did not hear before, get a chance to hear before. Special thanks to Dr. Hill and Mercedes who helped to make arrangement for the logistics for us to be here today. There are special people in our lives who never leave us even after they are gone. To many people, including my family, Patrick is just that person to us. The most important thing I've learned from Patrick is to live your passion. You know, he lived in a much better time than me, than myself. And he did not need to worry a lot of these other things. But maybe from that, you know, he kind of illustrated from his day-to-day life that you can actually live your passion. I'm confident that Patrick would want us to remember the precious time that we all shared with him, treasure the joy as well as the challenges in our lives. And please love your family and friends, and work super hard, live your passion, and have a fruitful 2023 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you all again for coming. I wanted to express on behalf of the students that helped work for this service just a sincere thank you to Dr. Hill, Mercedes, and Anthony for really helping us to make this as special as it could be and really a celebration for Patrick. At this time, I do want to invite the NJMS vocal cords to come up for a rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow in remembrance of Patrick. And following that, just a quick reminder that Shivani spent all day yesterday baking these incredible cupcakes that are going to be available right outside of the hall. Another quick reminder that we cannot eat them in here and that the cranes on top are not edible, but they taste amazing, and thank you all for coming, truly.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, way birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't I? Somewhere over the rainbow, way birds fly. There's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
Again, thank you all for coming and sharing in this, and cupcakes are outside. Thank you.
Two hands longing for each other's warmth. Cold smoke seeping out of colder throats. Darkness falling leaves nowhere to go. Pick it all up and start up. got a second chance, you could go home, escape it all, it's just irrelevant. It's just medicine. It's just medicine. You could still be what you want to, what you said you were when I met you. You've got a warm heart, you've got a beautiful brain, but it's disintegrating from all the medicine, from all the medicine, from all the medicine. Medicine. You could still be what you want to be, what you said you were when you met me. You could still be what you want to, what you said you were when I met you, when you met me, when I met you.